Chair of, whoa, okay. Good afternoon. I'm Patrick Curran, Chair of the Java Community Process Organization, and I'm here to talk about the Adopt-a-JSR initiative. I'm going to be helped out by Arun Gupta from Oracle, who will talk specifically about the ways in which Adopt-a-JSR has been helping in Java EE. Can you lower the mic a little? This is kind of loud. And then Michael Segers from Belgian Java User Group will do a demo of something that they put together as part of their an Adopt-a-JSR initiative. So, welcome, obligatory picture. So, as I said, I'll talk about Adopt-a-JSR, and then Arun will talk more specifically about Java EE, and then we'll do some demos. So, what is this Adopt-a-JSR program? It's an initiative put together by the London Java community and SoJava, which is the Brazilian Java users group. And it's basically an initiative to encourage Java user groups to get more involved in the work that we do at the JCP, creating Java specifications as a way for people to get involved. I've been coming to conferences like this for many years, and I would talk and I would encourage people to join the JCP as individuals. We do have a lot of individual members. And people did join, but then I found that they really didn't know what to do at that point. They didn't usually participate very much in the work of expert groups. Sometimes they were, I think, intimidated by the name. They'd say, I'm not an expert, why would I join an expert group? Those are for the big guys like IBM and Oracle. And just as individuals, there was not much that they could do. So these two Java user groups came up with this idea, which basically is, instead of trying to work through the JCP purely as an isolated individual, if you work as a group with other members of your Java user group, then you're more likely to get something useful done. So they put this program together about a year or so ago, and it's been pretty successful. So I'm going to tell you about it. The arguments that they used as to why Java user groups should get involved were, firstly, that members of Java user group are usually passionate about Java. So this is a way that they can help to move Java forward, to define the future of Java. They also thought that they might be able to help speed up the process of developing specifications by offering additional resources to the spec lead and to the expert group. They also thought in the past sometimes a specification would appear, they didn't think that they had had much input into it. Once they as programmers started to use it, they would think this is not the way that I would like this to be. I think these guys did a bad job. But rather than simply complain that the JCP wasn't doing what they wanted them to do, they thought, let's actually join and see if we can make things better. As I said, to try and make sure that the standards that we create are useful and practical and meet the needs of real-world developers, as opposed to the needs of academics or the needs of large corporations or whatever. And finally, and this is an important point, particularly since we're here in France, I apologize for speaking in English, most of the work that is done through the JCP tends to be done by English speakers. This may mean that we're actually missing the input of many people in parts of the world where English is not so widely spoken. For example, Brazil, or possibly also France. If we have local groups on the ground, then they can meet and discuss in their own language and also in their own time zone. I mean, if you have a bunch of meetings taking place in the US, that's probably evening time for you guys. So having a local meeting is a way that we can make our standards more global and that we can get more input from the broad group of developers all over the world. So, how would you get started on this? Well, basically, we have a project on java.net. You can go there and basically all the instructions are there. There is a mailing list that you can subscribe to. There is a wiki on that page with a table of all the JSRs that are currently being worked on. You can get, so you can check the list of JSRs, you can see which one interests you, you can maybe talk to other people already working on that JSR. Choose the one that interests you. You can talk directly to the spec lead and the expert group, because all of our work is now done out in the open, so the expert group will have a public mailing list that you can read and write to. So you'll be able to talk directly to them, and you can talk to other Java user groups through the Java user group alias, or through the aliases that we set up through Adopt-a-JSR. Then figure out what it is you want to do. We have a whole bunch of suggestions later on, but I'll get into those in a moment. You can ask your members if they want to actually make contributions in terms of code to join the JCP in their own right as individual members. That's usually needed if you're actually going to make a contribution. And then there are various communication channels which you can use to communicate with other people in the program. So why would you do this? How will it help a Java user group? Well, it'll bring attention to you. The vendors, the local companies, if they see that you're actually actively involved in helping to define the next version of Java, they're going to pay attention to you. The process of doing this will help you kind of become more professional and more organized. Hopefully it will attract more people to your Java user group, and you'll get a chance to collaborate with other user groups around the world, which is fun and will kind of broaden your horizons. So, some guidelines here for how you would provide feedback. I guess I'd think of these as warnings. Don't expect that you're going to be able to jump in today and next week make a major contribution to the Java virtual machine or to the next version of the language or whatever. It doesn't quite work that way. You've got to remember that the spec lead and the expert group will make the final decisions. In many cases they are looking for input, but you've also got to be aware that depending on the stage that the JSR is at, they may be feature complete. It may be at the point where you propose a major change and they say, well, we better postpone that till the next release. So be realistic about what it is you're going to be able to contribute. There are many ways that you can help, and I will go into that, but don't expect that right from the beginning you're going to be kind of making major contributions in terms of new features and so on. It's perfectly okay to have several Java user groups working on a particular JSR or helping out in it. The more the merrier. Different perspectives will always be helpful. And when you're talking to the people on the expert group, make sure that they know that you are commenting through the Adopt-a-JSR program. And similarly, you can use a Adopt-a-JSR tag when you're filing issues. This will help everybody to understand the contributions that you're making, and will give a little extra publicity to your user group. So how would you go about giving feedback? Well, the most important and simplest thing is to read the spec, all of it or some of it. You'll be surprised how often that doesn't happen. I remember at Java 1 a few years ago, I was doing a round table on Java ME, and they just, I think at that point, done a public review version of the specification for, I think it was mid-P2, which is basically the entire ME stack was being rewritten. I asked the spec lead, I said, you know, are you getting good comments? How many comments do you get? He said 5. So we're talking multiple hundreds of pages, major revision of Java ME, and only 5 people had bothered to comment at all. That's not healthy. We need broad feedback. So get the spec, read it, provide feedback. You can get the Java docs, start to use them, file issues, start to actually use it, because typically interim builds will be available once the spec reaches a certain level of maturity. Build some applications. That's the best way to figure out whether the APIs are constructed in the way that is helpful and useful to you. And as I said, later on in the session, Michael will give a demo of a game that the Belgian Java user put together in order to test out one of the Java EE JSRs. So try to incorporate these new technologies into applications that you already have, rewrite them to take advantage of new features that are coming, and file bugs against the spec or against the reference implementation as appropriate. So there's a whole bunch of things that you can do to help, and not all of them are super technical. That's an important point too. So if you have members in your Java user group who are a little hesitant, maybe not that skilled as programmers, there's still useful things that they can do. So we'll start with the simple stuff and work up to the more complicated stuff. So something simple that people can do is to help with the mailing list. So just monitor the mailing list. If you see questions that are not being answered, maybe you can jump in and answer them, or maybe you can bring them to the attention of the spec lead. If there are flame wars, see if you can put them out, steer people in concrete and constructive directions. You can help with evangelizing the JSR, through social media, blogging, or giving a lightning talk to your Java user group. You can help out with the documentation, maybe some of the kind of, not necessarily the Java doc itself, but user-level documentation. If such stuff does exist, maybe translate it into your own language. That would be helpful. If they have an FAQ or a wiki, help to maintain that. And help in general to work on the project's infrastructure, make sure that people can actually find it, make sure that it's usable, make sure that they have a functioning issue tracker, and so on. So these are all kind of non-technical but very useful things that you can do. And if we can find people to help out in these areas, that will free up the members of the expert group to concentrate on the more technical aspects. But if you are technical and want to do technical stuff, then you can help to test the reference implementation, report bugs, suggest new features. You can help with issues, reproducing issues, eliminating duplicates, making sure that they're prioritized appropriately, categorized. Give feedback on the design. Think about how you would use these APIs in your own day-to-day work. And in many cases, the reference implementation is being built through an open source project. So you could actually help to build the RI or to debug it. And in some cases also, you can help with the test suite. We do have an example here, JSR 3.10, the date and time API. The London Java community have several people who have been working on the TCK for that JSR, and they've been doing good work. Another thing that you could do to help us out is to monitor spec leads and expert groups and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do in terms of being open and transparent. We did a JSR a couple of years ago, JSR 348, where we mandated that all new JSR work be done in the open. So you have to have a public mailing list, you have to have an issue tracker, and people have to be able to see what you're doing. Well, it's possible that people are complying with the spirit of with the letter of this. In other words, they may have a mailing list, they may have an issue tracker, but there may not be very much traffic or activity on it. I remember when we started doing this, I looked around on java.net, I found a whole bunch of projects which claimed to be projects associated with JSRs, but when I looked at them, most of them, there was nothing happening. They hadn't been a post on the mailing list in 2 or 3 years. There was an empty issue tracker. So we want people to actually keep an eye on the expert groups and make sure they're doing the right thing. So we created a project at java.net where you can provide feedback on a particular JSR. So we want to know whether there are actually issues being filed, whether they're being closed, whether there is traffic on the mailing list, whether the expert group seems to be representative of the whole community, or whether it's perhaps dominated by 1 or 2 corporations, and to see whether they're actually publishing drafts of their spec and putting out the RI. So you can provide all this feedback to us online. That will be very helpful, because the only way that we can really make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do is to watch them and shine a light on things if they're not. So as I said, this program has been pretty successful. We have about 20 Java user groups who are participating. You can see all the names here. I won't read them out. And between them, they have contributed to a total of 23 different JSRs. So this is pretty good progress for probably about a year. A couple of JSRs are the most popular, 339, Java API for RESTful Web Services, and 353, JSON. Each have at least 5 Java user groups participating. So I think that's good progress. It really is. Here are some examples of the kind of things that people are doing. So the Cologne Java user group is working with Java server faces. They did a kickoff event in January. Belgian guys, Michael will tell you about later, but we've worked on JSR 356, WebSocket. Couple of jugs in India, Chennai and Hyderabad have worked on several different JSRs. The Chennai guys do also have an application, but I haven't seen that. Maybe you can say something about that, Arun. London Java community have contributed to several, including date and time, as I mentioned, and lambdas. And So Java in Brazil have worked on a number of JSRs also. They have their own list and their own Portuguese page, but their stuff is also coordinated with the English language project on Java.net. And now there is a GitHub section where you can see and download stuff that different Java user groups have done through this program. So things are really beginning to take off. So here's just some examples. This is a issue logged by the spec lead of JSF, where he's asking for help from a Java user group in something very specific to do with the Java doc. Some of the GitHub projects, so here's 346, the date and time has its own project, JSON, and so on. So, number of different things, number of Java user groups are working with different expert groups. If you want to go even further, of course, you can work through in OpenJDK if you want to contribute directly to Java SE or Project Glassfish, which Arun will probably say a little bit about if you want to help with Java EE. So there's plenty of ways that you can get involved, and I encourage you to do so. I guess one other thing I can mention, well, finish up here. So a couple of years ago, we changed the way that stuff is done to say it must be done out in the open so that people who want to participate can do so. So there's no more barriers anymore. So you can participate in the creation and the development of the specs through the Adopt-a-JSR program, or through the actual implementation of those specs for EE and SE through those open source projects. So if you want to do something, if you care about the way Java is going, then there's nothing stopping you participating. Before I hand over to Arun, let me just say one more thing that if I go back to the list of participating Java user groups, you'll notice there are no French groups here, and with the exception possibly of the Moroccans, no French-speaking Java user groups. Martin and Ben from the London Java community and myself are going to be meeting next week to try and figure out, we want to do a little campaigning in France to try and encourage French-speaking people to participate in this program. We're probably going to be holding a meeting here in Paris in May, and we'll let you guys know more about that closer to the day. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm going to pass it over to Arun now to talk about the ways in which Java user groups have contributed to Java EE. So, Arun, over to you.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Are we on? Oh, cool. Excellent. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Java EE 7 is, when we started this Adopt-a-JSR effort, Java EE 7 was the most active JSR at that point of time. We have 4 new JSRs, brand new. That functionality never existed in the platform, and there are several other that are going through major change as well. So in essence, we have 13 active JSRs that were going on in terms of the functionality. And here you can see some of those. For example, 236 is concurrency utilities. You heard probably an excellent session by David Delabasi on that. We have JAX-RS, which is standard way of doing RESTful web services. Of course, JMS, JSF, EJB, CDI. That functionality always existed in the platform, but we were kind of improvising it. In some cases, complete overhaul, some cases just minor updates. And of course, new functionality coming into the platform as well. So for example, you can see there's batch, JSON processing, and WebSocket, and including concurrency, which I said earlier, all of that is brand new functionality. Now, as Patrick was saying, there are different ways you can help us with the Adopt-a-JSR program. It could be as simple as saying, if somebody is asking on a Twitter or anywhere that I want to do a standard-based WebSocket development, it could be as simple as saying, I heard about JSR 356, and this is what you should take a look at. If you're doing that, you're basically helping us adopt the JSR. You don't need to be necessarily part of the jug, although we encourage you to be part of the jug, but you can help at individual level, at a jug level, and then it could go to the extreme where you start actually writing proposals for the specification. You say, this piece of functionality is missing from the chunk. I'm going to write a proposal, follow it through the spec, expert group, work it through, and actually get it integrated into the spec, maybe even implement it as well. So there are different levels by which you can help out. Now, all the specs in Java EE 7 today are proposed final draft. What that means is no new features can be added, but it's still not late. You can still take a look at the specs, download the Java docs, try them out, look for consistency, see if there are any breaks. The spec says something, the Java doc says something, and the implementation is not doing the right thing. So in that sense, there are still time before it actually becomes standard, but once it becomes standard, then it kind of stays there. For good or for bad, it kind of stays there. Go back to, I don't want to quote the example for J2EE 1.2 or 3, but that kind of stuck on. So this is much better though. But we still want your feedback. We still want your help to make it successful. So if you want to go to this URL, glassfish.java.net/Adopt-a-JSR, it provides a comprehensive list. We work with different We work with different spec leads to figure out what are the areas where they're specifically looking for feedback. There we listed out top 5 areas. Could be implementation, could be spec, particular addition of the spec, or particular section of the spec. Read that, look at the Java docs, and provide feedback to us. Now, as I said, propose final draft, that means no new features. You can say, change the API completely. Can do that. That's the process of JCP. But still willing to take, ease of use, comfortability, my use case is not being served. Or maybe just educating yourself. We are probably not doing a good job of educating you. So it's sort of a mutual process where you coach us, we coach you, and together we make it successful. I think now, one of the best examples that I want to quote is Belgian Jug kind of took it to the extreme, where they said, hey, we're going to arrange a hack day. Now, hack day, and maybe Michael can talk more about the hack day concept itself, but a quick introduction is these guys decided we're going to take JSR 356, Java API for WebSocket. We're going to introduce about that to the entire jug. So they did a hack day. They talked about what the JSR 356 is, what the APIs are, implementation. Of course, all of that is integrated in Glassfish. And they decided we're going to build a simple application. And I'll let Michael talk about it.
Am I on? Yeah. Thanks, Arun. So my name is Mike, or Michael, officially, Siegers. I come from Belgium, and I'm a proud member of the Belgian user group. So let me first switch to my PC. Yeah. So what we did with the Belgian user group is get together in a warm day of March, the first and only one we got in March, because it was very cold. I don't know what the weather was like in France, but in Belgium it was pretty cold until now. So that one beautiful day where we could also sit at a nice terrace somewhere in Brussels or something, we decided to meet in the Oracle offices and learn about the JSR 356, so the WebSocket JSR. So first off, Johan Vos talked about, together with Stijn van den Einde, I guess it was, talked about what the JSR was about, WebSockets, so an implementation for WebSockets in Java, both EE and SE. So, and then we decided to test the implementation by doing a game. And the game you already see projected is a tic-tac-toe game. And to prove that the spec was open enough for all platforms, we decided to do multiple clients. So we did a Java FX one, we did a HTML5 JavaScript one, we also did an iOS one and an Android one. So that's 4. Yeah. Of course, we could add more, but I think we've proven that it all works. So let me first demo this for you guys. I'm gonna put myself here because, yeah. So first off, all this code was practically written at the hackathon. So the concept of a hackathon is that you come together and you hack some code. So we did about 2 to 3 hours of hacking. And what we came up with was a JavaFX client and an iOS client. So let me first boot that up. I have to start over. So first off, I started the JavaFX client, which is now in waiting mode for a second player. So then on my iOS simulator, I can join as well. And so the second player will be X, the first player will be O. So the first player can go and can play O. This is really exciting, playing against myself. So then the second player, of course, obviously can play as well, and so on and so on. So let's make the JavaFX client win. It should. So there you go. Nice feedback to the user as well, that O wins, and on the iOS client you see that we lose. So this is kind of what we did at the hackathon to check about the stability of the implementation. I have it from Arun that this also will be one of the samples that will be provided in the SDK. So this gave us the opportunity as BJUG to come forward into the community as guys that really want to help with this JSR. And the fact that me being here is already proof that you really get some visibility as well as a user group. I wouldn't be here otherwise. So I can only suggest that you guys join in as well. I guess the Paris user group and in France in general, the user groups are much bigger because you're with more people. So you really should join and help improve things. Yeah, so that's it, Arun.
Okay, good. Yeah. So what you saw really was just one example of the experiences that we saw as part of Java EE 7 Adopt-a-JSR. So BJUG was, of course, one of the leading samples. They actually did a hack day. They shared the presentation. This code is again on the GitHub. You can download it, play with it, all that. There were several other JUGs that are doing similar efforts. Chennai JUG, they are building an application that is again end-to-end application using HTML5 canvas and they're using not just one technology. In this case, they kind of narrowed down to one technology. They decided to have a whole bunch of technologies: JSF, EJB, JPA, Batch. They're building an urban travelers application. It's kind of a game that you can play across browsers. The idea is you don't have to restrict to one, you can do multiple technologies. Another example is in Egypt, there's a Java Developer Conference in Cairo, which is the biggest Java Developer Conference in the region. Now, they invited us to come and give a presentation over there. We could not go for whatever reason, but the idea is there's a local guy from the Egypt Java user group. That group is participating as part of the Adopt-a-JSR effort, and they are well aware of the technology, and they have the slides and everything. And they said, you know what, hey, I will go and present on your behalf at the Egyptian Java Developer Conference. So the idea is not just socializing the concept, not just introducing the concept. It's not limited to that. You can actually build sample apps. In this case, it'll likely get integrated in Glassfish 4. You can speak on behalf of us or in behalf of the community at a particular conference, or there is a potential of you getting highlighted as part of the Java EE 7 launch, which is actually coming up soon. So it's not just doing stuff and getting visible at a conference in a room, but at a much higher level as well. Highly encouraged to take a look.
On again? Yeah, okay. So that's about all that I have. So just reiterate what the other guys have said. There are a number of ways you can participate. It doesn't have to be a major commitment of time, but whatever it is you want to do, we'll be very glad to take your help. As I said, we made a change to our processes a couple of years ago, basically saying all the expert groups in the future must do their work out in the open, they must make it possible for people to participate, and they must actually encourage that participation. We've seen the Java EE guys have been very forthright. We have many spec leads actually coming out and making specific requests. I need some help with this. So it's a collaborative process. It works for everybody. It's good for the platform because we get your input, and it's good for you because you get some visibility and you also have some fun. So with that, we do have 15 minutes or so left, but I'm going to stop now and let's see whether you have any questions, suggestions, thoughts. So over to you guys.
Okay. Any interest in joining or ideas of doing something, or any ideas of doing? So why you're sitting here? Because you wanted to rest, or so any plans, any interests? What you can do is actually download that source code. That's really fun. If you're interested in like WebSockets, you can just look at the source code and really learn. I think that's, for me, that's really interesting. If I ever, we're going to use this for parlays in the future, WebSockets. So now I have a sample application which I can really look and see how it works. So, yeah.
Okay, no questions, no further questions, then I'll give you a little time back, and I guess we will call it a day. But thank you for your attention.